Yeah. Okay, sure. Good to go. So thank you so much for joining us today in our second panel discussion, that is IP rights in the age of blockchain, 5G and artificial intelligence. So we have as a speaker, you can see the panelist, Mr. Sourav Bose, former associate director at UBS, Mr. Ajay Panwar, senior managing counsel, intellectual property from Mastercard, Dr. Sanjeev Chaube, EVP and head from Big Data and Advanced Analytics from Vodafone India Limited, Dr.Rahma, Head of Presales UAE and Oman, Innovation Leader, SAP EMBA Global, LBS-Columbia. Ms. Kavitha Gupta, Senior Corporate Counsel, Go-to-Market Legal, India and South Asia, Juniper Networks. Mr. Antonius Alexander Tigor, Head of Legal Businesses, Partner Digital from Telkomsel. And Mr. Jim Durkin, Product Manager, IP.com. So a very warm welcome to you for you all. And can we have a big applause for us for being a part of the conference? Yeah. So let's begin with the session. And now it's over to you, Mr. Sourav, as you are a moderator of the session.
Yeah,
So can we start the session? Meanwhile,
definitely.
Dr. Rahma join us.
Definitely. Thanks, Harshita. So yeah, so I would like to I would like to start the session by by presenting a slide. So maybe I can share my screen. Give a second. Hopefully this works. So yeah, so we have the topic for the day, as I think is IP rights in the age of artificial intelligence. So I just wanted to introduce artificial intelligence as a whole in the world of finance, and I think you have all heard about me. So this is my introduction. Currently, I am working with EY as an artificial intelligence specialist. Previously with UBS, and prior to that, I was with HSBC. So what is this AI? So there is a lot of buzzwords in this world AI. So what is this AI? So AI is nothing but a suite of technology which actually helps us do something we used to think about when we were a child as a science fiction. So that has become a reality right now. So it helps in pattern detection. It helps in foresight of future. It helps in predicting the future. It helps in understanding profiles, so on and so forth. But if you see the trends in the industry, if you see like the past versus the future, you will see that data as a whole has increased drastically. So if I go back a couple of decades, so data science, or the amount of data that was in the world is much less. It has gone up by 100 more than 100 times in the last one decade itself. So I was going through this. This slide is about I would say a survey by Cambridge University and EY to understand how AI is perceived in the world. So if you look, the major understanding from this survey that we can take forward is introduction of artificial intelligence. Most of the organizations, both in fintech as well as the incumbent organizations, they think in the financial services, by introducing by introducing AI, they have actually improved their capacity, improved their capability in terms of revenue generation, in terms of automation and similar stuff. So when I say AI is nothing but a bigger spectrum of the smaller things that we talk about: machine learning, reinforcement learning, deep learning, computer vision, which actually talks about the image processing things that you hear nowadays, NLP, understanding your speech, understanding what you speak across different languages, translating from from one language to another. These are the some things that is coming up in these financial services are also taking up interest in these forms of AI. Now let's talk about some of the use cases that that we see in the banks. So transaction monitoring in HSBC, Barclays, and Stancy, they have invested a large in monitoring transactions to to stop anti-money laundering, to stop frauds. Investment banks like Citi, your wealth management solutions from DBS, from Credit Suisse, so they advise you in these times of distress, like or recently DBS has advised people not to go for debt funds or certain sections of the debt funds. So these advisories, they come from using this AI. Similarly, nowadays we use chatbot, again a form of AI, inculcated in this financial world. Similarly, these are the investment management, how AI is being used in this investment management world. So by designing dynamic portfolios, by designing your mutual funds, by designing the underlying assets, by designing mitigating the risks by online automated trading. Now comes the other part of it, that is also the insurance. So not only on investments and I would say banks are using it, but also insurance companies are now using AI to one in their day-to-day lives, I would say. So they are, so especially things of internet of the use of IoT by X and Ping and is something very eye-catching. So we all have something like Google Home, we have heard of Alexa, but so using these devices to capture your information about your telematics, capture information about your health, these actually health insurance companies to have a better underwriting, a better prediction around their pricing, the offer they are gonna give you. So Aviva, in fact, is, I think they have started it back in 2018, that you take a test drive and then they decide on their on their prices for the car insurance depending on the way you drive. Similarly, if you had a car accident unfortunately and you want to claim the insurance money, you take a picture of the car, the AI will analyze the damage and it will then price it for you, ask, settle the claim for you. So these are some of the aspects that I just wanted to cover uh, today. Now, if I, the now if I would like to ask Mr. Ajay, how do you think? So the use of AI and blockchain has been incumbent in this new world. Now, I would say, how do you think we should, how do we think this technology should be protected from the perspective of the copyright laws, from the perspective of uh, the intellectual property behind it? So, Mr. Ajay.
Oh, Mr. Sourav, and very good afternoon and very good evening to all of you. I think Sourav started on correct noting artificial intelligence, and if I may do so, I think I like the movie Three Idiots, so I want to simplify things. So, how I define artificial intelligence is anything that makes our life easier and simplifies stuff using the available technical means. So, and I think there's also this favorite quote that I often get to hear, that AI is the new Excel. So, to the extent that we have been using Microsoft Excel in past, I think the future lies with AI. Now, with that thing in place, and I would try to answer this generically, considering blockchain and other aspects as well. I think what we have seen is when we talk about protecting any of the technical aspects, the core fundamental remains the same. And that is that you need to identify what is it basically that your employee base or engineers in your company have come up with. So the basic aspect is that you have a problem that you start with. You try to come up with a solution for that, and you analyze the solution to see what all forms of intellectual property rights are present in that. Now, if it's, let's say, the concept or the algorithm or a particular workflow, you try to protect it by patent, which is the broadest form of IP. Now, within that, I think you have several parameters that you want to consider, whether this algorithm is actually sitting at a backend server of your solution, and no one else in the world would ever come to know how you are performing or using that algorithm. If it's that type of solution, you're better off keeping it as a trade secret. Other forms of protection for any other technology is, be it copyright, which I think provides protection for the exact code base that you have written, for which you don't need a registration. The value proposition pretty much remains the same when you want to enforce your rights, whether it's registered or unregistered. It's just a little bit additional processing that you may have to do at the time of enforcement. Uh, so that's available to us as well. Other than that, I think what I would say on this particular aspect is that now let's say that we actually want to protect it by way of patent. So how do we go about it? Because whenever we try to protect inventions, we see big roadblocks from various patent offices, as well as they are, I think, quite forthcoming in terms of realizing how the technologies are evolving over time and what type of protections companies are looking for. So they are very forthcoming in that. But there are certain requirements, and again, I think we need to stick to the basic principles where people often talk about the problem they are trying to solve and the solution and how it targets the problem. But they don't disclose or provide enough information as to how the solution works. And I think that's the main reason where we see a lot of back and forth happening with patent examiners or even with other offices which are having control to provide various form of IP protection. And to give you a nutshell, I think when we talk about, let's say, machine learning, what it's doing is it's receiving certain input, it's providing an output, and that's what we desire. But until and unless we talk about what goes into that black box, how the processing is happening, I think it's almost impossible to get a patent protection on because you're not disclosing the novel part of your solution. And I think that's where a critical question also comes, which I know James and other folks would be talking about moving forward, as to who is the actual inventor on such AI solutions. And that's where I think, again, the aspect of clearly defining the black box comes into picture. Because if it's, let's say, a generative algorithm which just develops itself and further enhances itself, and I think you are not able to describe it well and properly in your patent application, then yeah, you don't, uh, or you won't be rather getting a protection for that because that's not something that you have invented or you have defined well to the extent that gives you a right as an inventor. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to speak about artificial intelligence. I think the use cases are already covered. I come from fintech background, and there's always the aspect of intellectual property that comes into picture when we work with various banks who are our customers. So we are a business to business to consumer, not a direct business to consumers model. And there are a lot of contractual aspects that also comes into picture, especially when we are working on, let's say, developing something for our banks. And that's where I think another form of protection that I'll bring into picture is the contractual protection, where you try to clearly identify which IP would actually belong to the payment network service provider versus which one would be residing with the bank. So that's another aspect. Now, with respect to blockchain, I think the again same fundamental logic holds good, where you need to define what the blockchain ledger contains, how the header footer of that ledger gets modified when you're trying to, let's say, patent a particular aspect which uses that ledger for further processing. So those fundamental aspects remain good. But I think blockchain being a very new area, if you show clear cut technical effect, which also holds good for artificial intelligence, then we have seen that getting patents in blockchain domain is quite easy, uh, provided you have the details. And we have been getting many issued patents in the United States for blockchain. To the extent, I think we are top among top three filers in the fintech domain in blockchain, and a lot of issued patents as well. And I think I'll talk about the case laws maybe at a different stage when the conversation further continues. But to give you a brief, I think Indian Patent Office has also shown promising outcome via various case laws, very recent that happened right now, where the judge said that the technology is evolving, and as long as there's technical effect and solutions that encompass blockchain, 5G, artificial intelligence, the keyword being used in that judgment, I think they are pretty much a subject matter of patent protection.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Ajay. So James, so could you please shed some light around, how do you use AI in your at your organization to, or what are your views in terms of how to use AI for to prioritize new inventions or new disclosures? So if you could,
Yeah, that's a
Shed
great
some light on
question.
that.
So AI is obviously a very broad term, as we've been talking about, and it raises a lot of issues like we discussed this morning in the first presentation in terms of disclosure requirements to patent offices and such. Some of the things we focus on at IP.com are really natural language processing, semantic search. And I think, one of the trends that we see, in some of our patent pending technologies is a move away from just, for example, ranking result sets for retrieval, and a move towards some quantitative measurements, like, for example, helping prioritize invention pipelines by estimating the novelty of new ideas using AI. Um, Things that can be more process accelerators from a business standpoint and help you get to patent offices quicker. Those are, I think, some of the trends that we see in the NLP side in terms of applications for patent prosecution. Um, you know, I find, in addition to the technologies that we're working on, some of the discussion to be very interesting today. I think, the new holdings in the courts in India is very interesting. I also think that, the authorship on the AI inventions is, it seems straightforward, but if we think back to your slides, right? For example, computer vision, there are some things that could be classified as procedural.
Correct.
I would think that if we start going down that route, like the U.S. Patent Office has requested comments on, we may end up seeing kind of a really interesting situation, and I'd be curious what others think, where there's a debate about, what is AI and what isn't AI.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you.
So yeah, we'll come back to that question again. So yeah, to your question, James, around India and now and the Indian's policy for patents. So Kavitha, if you could shed some light around India's policy for AI and patents around that.
Thanks, Sourav. So I have a slide that I have made on, the India patent. Let me try to share it. And I think picking up from where Ajay said that in India it is rising as a new spot. Just a second, I'm just trying to share. Like I was just trying to collect certain data, like artificial intelligence is playing a very important role, especially during COVID times. I think the government and even few companies are using contact tracing app to contain the virus and to isolate people. So that shows how important is AI. And when it comes to filing, I just picked up this certain facts that I wanted to share. That India is rising as a new hotspot for patent filing in the fields of artificial intelligence and is among the countries touching the apex of publication. As per WIPO, India has turned out to be one among the top 10 countries to file AI patents. When it comes to machine learning that Ajay mentioned, it covers one-third of inventions filed, nearly 134,000 patents, in which desktop learning related patents have grown yearly by 28%. One of the primary contributors, in filing the patent is from IBM and Microsoft, and it is worthy to note that the IBM inventors from India have filed over 800 patents, which is second greatest contributor to the company's overall patents in technology ranging from AI to cloud computing. And again, Microsoft uses as many as 7 major offices for filing, including India. So this is how India is, highly ranked when it comes to scientific publication and also on increasing patent filing. But there are 4 areas of patent focus which is still impacting AI invention. The first is on patentability, second is on the inventorship, third is on the liability issues and on obviousness. But touching upon the Indian scenario, in India, the patent office does not recognize algorithms or mathematical expression as patent eligible subject matter. While no AI specific guidelines has been issued yet, we are still following the computer related invention, which was brought in 2002 Amendment Act. Again, the Indian Patent Office issued guidelines in 2015 that affirmed for a computer program to be considered patent eligible, provided the subject matter should involve either a novel hardware or a novel hardware with a novel computer program or a novel computer program with a known hardware that goes beyond the normal interaction with the hardware and impacts the functionality. This third category had actually presented a lot of ambiguity, which was clarified later, stating that when running on or loading into a computer going beyond the normal physical interaction between the software and the hardware on which it is running and is capable of bringing further technical effect may not be considered as exclusion under Section 3. However, the technical effect part was not clarified. They were further revised. This particular guideline was further revised in 2016 and again in 2017. However, the most notable amendment was the deletion of the requirement that patents for software could only be claimed in conjunction with novel hardware. Though it provided certain relief, yet the mathematical methods that are solving purely mathematical problem or equation without specifying a practical applications cannot be patented. Algorithm in any form, even if they're solving a problem, are not patentable. A software can be patented if it is an essential part of the hardware. If it is existing hardware, the software should be capable of enhancing the technical effect. Like I think the recent judgment that Ajay mentioned, though it do provide certain relief, but still the Section 3 remains a contentious issue. Coming to inventorship, again, the Indian patent law is very clear that the inventorship can be only granted to person and not to artificial intelligence or any machine. So I think the Dabber's case is yet to be tested in India. Yeah, so I think this was the quick slide that I had to share about the facts about India AI scenario.
So yeah, thanks, Kavitha. So Ajay, you were mentioning something about a case. So could you please elaborate some more around that?
Sure, I can do that. See, I think the crux or the basic aspect to be taken out of that case is not actually the case, because I think the case which happened, which was a very where a person had filed a patent like 19 years ago from today's date, and a patent life is merely 20 years. But the point to be taken from there was that as an outcome of that court case, judge said that the patent needs to be re-examined, because when it was declined at the first go, merely citing this aspect of 3K section, that wasn't valid in current scenario because technology has evolved. And whenever we talk about, let's say, software per se, I think everyone now knows that we cannot just claim the software. What is more important, the application to be linked to that particular aspect of the invention you are claiming. So you're limited to a particular use case or a workflow. At the same time, you need to show the technical effect. If that technical effect has something to do with hardware, I think it's a perfect case where you will get a patent. But for some reason, let's say if it's not directly linked to hardware, but you can showcase the technical effect to be, let's say, providing a secure output compared to what we were getting prior to this invention, or providing certain sort of results which actually indicates that you are enhancing the speed or efficiency or any other technical aspect, and how you are doing it in a particular fashion, that basically increases your chances of getting a patent.
Okay.
But yeah, of course, be prepared. You will definitely get an objection under 3K, and that's, I think, the mindset of all attorneys in India, that whenever we are working on a matter relating to such technology, that's something that we prepare ourselves for.
Yep. Yep. I do agree. I do agree with you, Ajay.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Just to add, I think what this recent judgment has done is it has actually provided clarity on the guideline that was issued in 2015. As I mentioned, like they wanted to make novel hardware as compulsory. I think it has now gone back to section 3, which requires now only a technical effect. But as I said, even this judgment does not clarify about what the technical effect is.
Okay.
So I think it is again the patent office who will decide whether it is patentable or not.
Yep. Yep. Thanks, Ajay and Kavitha. So,
Yeah.
Harshita, you were.
So, yeah. So can we conclude the session because we are left with only few minutes so that we can have a Q&A session after that.
Yeah, sure. I think we'll have to have some more time, Kavitha. Sorry, Harshita. Give us like 5-10 minutes, I
Okay.
guess,
Sure.
at least. Yeah. So yeah. So now moving on to the next part, is Dr. Sanjeev Chaube. So, Dr. Chaube, could you shed some light around the use of 5G and telecommunication and how the telecommunication has evolved over the period, and how has 5G impacted the real world? Dr. Chaube?
Sure, Sourav.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was on mute.
No
Uh,
problem.
okay, so let me share a short presentation, and probably that is just for a reference. Let me know if you are able to see it.
Not yet.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, so
We can
5G.
we can see your screen, Dr. Chaube.
I
Oh
have
yeah, yeah,
sh-
yeah, 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 yeah. We can see it now. Yeah.
so that there is a latency. I think again the signals 5G 4G to 5G. The requirement is increasing day by day with COVID, right? So anyway, so we are migrating from 4G to 5G is a big development that we can foresee, right? So let me directly come to this topic of 5G and why, what are the complications and what are the impacts of 5G and artificial intelligence jointly will have in coming time on IT and computation versus development of products, customized products, how it is going to jointly impact. Now, the first part is certainly the 5G part, and I will not take a lot of time because of looking at the time available with us. 5G will provide us 1.5 to 1.8 Gbps, and perhaps in some condition it will provide us more, right? As compared to 4G, which used to provide us in the past 40 GB to 100 Mbps. So we are migrating from Mbps to Gbps. Look at the volume of data that is going to grow in terms of structured or unstructured, both form of unstructured formats, that is text based and the video or vision based. So both the data sets, both the all the three type of data is going to increase, and which is going to certainly bring the problem up. Now next thing is we can see the kind of, and on top of it, all the IT companies are today, or not all the IT companies, rather all the domains, all industries, I would say more than 90% are surviving because of the telecom, right? We are able to connect through telecom today. We are able to talk to each other using this digital media, and which is nothing but supported by a telecom product or domain of one kind, right? So the other challenge which I see is the AI. So again, when we talk about AI, there is a machine learning to it, there is a deep learning part to it, there are RNNs, there are CNNs, right? So these kind of complicated algorithms, deep learning algorithms, they require larger chunk of data, larger volume of data to become more accurate. And in telecom also, every day, if we talk about telecom in India, Vodafone, or if I talk about entire telecom, all three major players. So in a day, daily structured CDR format should be crossing around 5 TB of data every day. So imagine what is the kind of data that we are collecting, and billions of records which are coming up. So if you want to make any cross sell, upsell, or any kind of vision based product, so predictive vision, object detection, face detection, or identifying some anomalies, or different type of vision applications which are deployed as a part of the entire product portfolio of smart buildings, hospitals, or airports. So there is a lot of data which is going to now flow into the system that needs to be analyzed, that needs to be kind of presented to the business in a meaningful way. So the insights have to be extracted, and then that has to be provided back, right? So a
Yep.
lot of computation power is going
Correct.
to be involved. A lot of GPU, a lot of TPUs are going to be used there.
Yep.
Now this is what is going to be the challenges
Definitely.
in 5G and AI. Right?
Definitely.
So I
Definitely.
suppose these kind of challenges which are going to arise in they are going to come up very soon. Right? 5G is still in picture, and a lot of countries are yet to adopt it.
Correct.
So that's the thing. That's the major thing. And I think in the interest of time, I would suggest the other panelists to
So yeah, so
talk.
Antonius, so what is your experience around the use of 5G, the IPR applications coming up in Indonesia? So other, I would say that entire Southeast Asia.
Yeah, well, in Southeast Asia, particularly in Indonesia, I work for the major telecom company in Indonesia. I manage 80% of the citizen of subscriber here in Telkomsel, and it's quite interesting that Dr. Sanjeev present about data explosion during the COVID-19, and I think that is it's really accurate because during the pandemic, all of the citizen now, all of the subscriber connect to the Wi-Fi, or they need the connectivity to communicate with their friends, colleagues, because of the work from home policy and then the school from home policy. So I think um, in South Asia, the 5G is really powerful during this pandemic and really beneficial for us to commercialize and deliver the product better and better again, because the bandwidth of the 5G is um, is better than 4G, of course. And yeah, and in regards to the AI and artificial intelligence, and then 5G, there is several beneficial for the telecom sector. AI is being adopted in networks. AI is being embraced by service provider around the world, not only in the South Asia, but also in Europe, and then the US, and from Africa as well. And more than half of the service provider, maybe total 53%, expect to have adopted AI within their networks by the end of the 2020. Some are working to even shorter time scale and expect to have adopted AI by the end of this year. Further, I think the numbers will be increasingly significant. And we use AI in the service provider for the customer service, and enhancing customer experience was identified by like more than half of the service providers as the key area where AI is presently having a greatest impact within the core network activities. And in addition, more than around 70% highlighting enhancing customer experience, customer service as a business and operational objective over the next 3 until 5 years. Of course, AI will be beneficial for the telecom sector, not only for the networks, customer service, network investment, and also the data challenges as well.
Thanks, Antonius. So just wanted to close it on by addressing the elephant in the room. So everyone, so what do you think, in case such cases, like, or the problem we see in India especially, like if if the discoverer is is a machine itself, if if the inventor is another algorithm itself. So how do you think, James, everyone, please put in your thoughts. I mean, how do you think the IP law will evolve to encompass those those aspects as well, not only relying or sticking to this earlier concept that an inventor has to be a human?
Well, I mean, just kind of a personal opinion here. I don't expect in the United States it will change. Now, the USPTO did ask for a commentary on this. It raises a lot of issues, and even potentially, although this is not clear, constitutional issues in the U.S. because there is a requirement for the Constitution mentions authors and inventors in the intellectual property clause. So certainly in that provision, when we moved first inventor to file in the U.S., came up and ended up not being an issue. But I think it's a very broad question, and I think long story short, I would be surprised if it would change because it raises so many issues. And I actually think that if it were to change, one of the biggest debates, as I mentioned earlier, would be what constitutes procedural programming, what constitutes AI programming, the same type of debate we have right now about what's really a software patent thing with AI, in my opinion. So a lot of issues raised. I don't expect that we'll see a change in inventorship in the near future, at least, but you never know.
Yep, I agree, James. So yeah, anyone? So Alexander, Ajay, any comments, any ideas? That it might be personal, but still, what are your thoughts on this?
So, sort of one point here. I think James, what James is saying and what Ajay was saying, I think it is very, very. So there are many algorithms which are available, machine learning algorithms like C5.0 or GA48, or especially developed by different statisticians. So a lower version is always available for free, while the advanced version they keep it for proprietary, or they want to sell it to get into to be part of any product or an accelerator, AI accelerator that they make. So that's one point I just wanted to make.
Yeah, definitely.
Apart from open source,
personally, I'm speaking. I would like to differ from James, and I would like to, perhaps, this is our concluding topic, and we can debate on this for years. I would like to still differ on it, James. That I feel that especially in this world where and machines are really getting intelligent, where you are programming machines, and machines are no longer being just following a set of instructions but learning on their own. I feel that giving a patent access, a copyright to another algorithm is, I feel, it's possible in near future. So that's the way I look into it. So maybe it raises a lot of questions, but I feel it also solves perhaps a lot of other issues.